Hello and welcome to another video here at Hobbies and Habitus. My name's Dan and today we are talking about everything we know so far about DC Dual Force. And it's a lot. Alright, so yeah, this video is all about DC Dual Force and talking about everything that we know. So I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while, kind of diving into everything that we know so far about the game. And with this past week's recent announcements, I'm just like, let's dive into it and let's get going. So now before we get into it, don't forget, check the link in the description. You can join the DC Dual Force Discord community currently being run by another awesome content creator, Willow. Willow's been doing some awesome content already around this game. When we haven't really known a whole lot of information, we've had a couple articles to go off of, and Willow's been producing some pretty awesome content. So go check out his content, but also join that Discord down below and yeah, come chat with us, hang out and talk all about DC Dual Force. Now, this upcoming weekend is going to be the first streamer beta weekend. Now, fingers crossed that I'm able to participate in that, but some of your favorite streamers are hopefully you're going to be able to be playing this game, and they will be given beta keys that they can hand out to their community. So this coming weekend, June 9th through 11th, is going to be the first weekend you'll be able to see the game in action from some of your favorite streamers. So again, fingers crossed, hopefully I'm able to be a part of that. But the following weekend is going to be the first open beta weekend. Now, the game will be live for 4 hours each day, and if you have a beta key, you will have access to that event. So again, this coming weekend, June 9th through 11th, the streamer beta weekend, and then the following weekend it's going to be the first open beta weekend. So that way the developers and publishers of the game will be able to test the servers, and that way they'll be ready for a full launch. And we don't know exactly when the full launch is going to be, but most likely will be within the month. Fingers crossed. Now, the goal of DC Dual Force is each player is going to build a 40-card deck centered around 2 faction leaders. Now, leaders are going to start the game in the rear corners of a 3x2 grid per player. Now, each leader is going to have a total health or defense, and players are going to look to deplete their opponent's leader's health or defense down to 0 and KO their opponent's leaders. The first player to do that is going to be victorious. Now, there's already a lot to get to, so we're going to kind of break this down section by section. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the board, okay? The player board, the player space, the battlefield. So like I previously mentioned, so each player is going to have a 3x2 grid for a total of 6 slots, okay? So you're going to start the game with your leaders in the back corners of your grid. So your leaders each going to take up a spot on the grid. So you've got 6 total slots to place your characters in. You can play recruits to any open slot on the battlefield. Essentially, you've got your back row and your front row. Cards in the front row essentially are going to protect the cards in the back row. Now, not totally, but it's going to be the cards that are in the front protect the slot that is directly behind them. So if you place your leaders, again, in those rear slots, if you play a recruit directly in front of them, they are going to protect what is directly behind them. So if we take a look at this example here, so we are playing as Batman and Hal Jordan. All right, so our opponent playing Lex Luthor and Doomsday. So our opponent has 2 recruits on the battlefield. They have Black Mask and Ventriloquist. So Black Mask is played directly in front of Lex Luthor. I am not able to attack Lex Luthor directly. In attack, I would have to attack Black Mask first. Now Ventriloquist is protecting Doomsday. Now it's important to note that this only applies in combat damage, not in spells, action cards, which we'll touch on here in a minute. Again, remember, your front row is essentially there to protect your back row. So you do have that open slot in between the leaders in the back. So if you played a recruit there and wanted to protect that spot, you could place another recruit in the front of that slot to protect that back middle slot. All right, now before we move on, let's talk about the different card types. So you've got essentially 4 different card types, but it's really kind of 3, okay? The first is the main one, your leaders. Your leaders are your commanders or your generals on the battlefield. They are leading your forces into battle. And honestly, this is a point that I think DC Dual Force leans into heavily for the right reason, okay? You want to have a representative. Like, you are trying to build an identity around a character, or in this case, 2 different characters. And that's what card game players seem to really like. Again, just look at Commander, the Commander format in Magic the Gathering. The most popular format in that game, building a deck around a singular character. So this game kind of leans into that, and players seem to enjoy that, myself included. So you've got your leaders, you got 2 different leaders. Now, your leaders generate charges each turn, which can be spent for certain effects. Now, your leaders, again, like we mentioned, have a total health pool or defense that is trying to be depleted down to 0. Now, most of the time, your leaders can't attack. They don't have an attack value like recruits do. Now, there are times where you are able to generate attacks from your leaders through certain card effects, so giving your leader the opportunity or ability to attack. There are cards that are able to do that. But the next one is going to be the recruits. So your recruits are your minions on the battlefield. They each have certain attack, defense stat, and again, that defense is essentially their total health, which is persistent turn after turn. So again, you've got 6 total slots on the battlefield, and then you're able to fill up those slots with recruits. The third type of card is actions are also kind of like spells, if you're familiar with other games. So when you play an action, you play it, it gets resolved and then sent to the discard pile. Now there's kind of a fourth card type, if you will, and that's tokens or cards that are created. If you look on the DC Dual Force website, they have a card database already, which is freaking awesome and phenomenal. You can select on created cards and then see all the cards that you're able to create from other card effects in the game. So and some of them are recruits, some of them can be actions, but they are still created, through other card effects. Now, the next thing I want to talk about and touch on is the faction. So probably one of the things that's going to be most important is your deck synergy, what you're trying to accomplish. So in this game, there are 5 different colors or factions. You've got red, blue, green, purple, orange, green. Did I say green? I don't know if I said green, but you've got red, which is your might. So those the leaders of the might faction are Superman, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. Now, if you just say the word might, I mean strength, all about buffing up your characters, big stuff. I mean, this is led by Superman. So one of the things that we don't have a lot of right now is a really color identity or a faction identity. But what we do have is characters that embody this faction. Again, the might faction is Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. So all about being big and strong. The next one is Tactics, which is the blue color, the Tactics faction, which the leaders that we have so far for Tactics are Batman, Batgirl, Cyborg, and Green Arrow. This is the one that I'm most looking forward to because it's Batman, and Batman's awesome. Batman is the best. I'm just a big Batman fan. I cannot wait to make a Batman Batgirl deck. That's going to be the first deck that I brew because I just love Batman. So Tactics is all about being smart on the battlefield. This is all about gadgets as well. There's a lot of gadgets that we see already for this faction. So that is blue. And then the next one is green, or the energy faction. That's led currently. The leaders that we have so far are Hal Jordan, Shazam, The Flash, and Zatanna. Zatanna's kind of interesting. As I go back and think about her character and thinking about the faction of energy, to me, it does kind of seem to make sense. But initially, I would have thought that's more spell slinging. But again, in context of this game, I'm not really sure you can think about it from your traditional Magic the Gathering color pie, right? The color wheel. As we continue to get into this game, I'm going to be continually thinking about the factions and what these factions really do represent. Okay. So the next one we have is orange, which is the Anarchy faction, all about a chaos, sowing discord, and just all out anarchy. I mean, I think that's a perfect word to describe this faction here. So the leaders so far for the Anarchy faction are Doomsday, Harley Quinn, and the Joker. Yeah, they're just really all about anarchy. I don't have a ton here, but again, this color identity is what I'm kind of really interested in with this game, and kind of see how all these colors and cards within these factions are going to fit together and see what kind of synergies that we can pull off. And then the last faction is the purple, which is the Tyranny faction. That's led currently by Black Adam, Lex Luthor, and Poison Ivy. So again, Tyranny, I want to be the one in charge. So that makes sense with Lex Luthor, right? Same with Poison Ivy and even Black Adam. So that's what we got so far for the faction. So one of the interesting things things about this game is you don't have to pair hero with hero. You can pair a hero with a villain. So you could build a Superman Lex Luthor deck, a Might and a Tyranny deck. Does that really make sense within the context of the comics? Not necessarily, but in this game you can do it, which with card games, it's awesome that you're able to really build whatever kind of strategy and synergy you want. So that is a quick overview of the factions, and I'm probably going to do a whole other video just really once we have more information diving into the color identities or the faction identities of DC Dual Force. All right, now let's talk about the rarity system. So DC Dual Force is implementing a 4-color rarity system. You have common, which is the white color, rare, which is the blue color, super rare, which is purple, and then ultimate, which is the orange/gold color. Now, if you go to the DC Dual Force website, you go into the database, there's a 5th in there. It's legendary. Now, the legendary, it does have that same color. So if you look at a card, there is essentially it's a diamond in the middle of the card with a color. That denotes the rarity of the card, okay? So I was very intrigued and interested. I'm like, well, why do they have legendary? We don't really know what this legendary rarity actually means, but it does have that same color as it's purple. So it is the same color as the super rare. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that and just kind of see what that really means, because we don't really know so far. At its base level, we've got 4 different rarities: common, rare, super rare, and ultimate, which for a 4 rarity system is not out of the ordinary. There are plenty of other games just like Magic the Gathering that have 4 rarity systems. So all right, now let's talk about probably one of the biggest topics you ever talk about when you talk about a card game, and that is the resource system. So the resource system in DC Dual Force is extremely interesting. So the way that they describe it is it's a unique metal-based resource system. So there's essentially 3 tiers. You have bronze, silver, and gold. Now, if you look at all the cards, okay, top right corner, you'll see the cost of the card, and which is pretty normal. If from any TCG, CCG, you'll see that cost normally in that top left corner of the card. However, in DC Dual Force, that's not a number, that's not a value, it's a color, which is really interesting. So there's different levels of this resource. You've got the lowest level is bronze. There is technically a lower below that, which is free. If you see a black color, that denotes the card is free to play. Okay, now the three levels of this resource are bronze, silver, and gold. Now you start off the game with 1 bronze resource. Now, if you look at screenshots that have been put out so far, you'll see 2 slots in the middle of each player board. That denotes the resources. Okay, so you start the game with a bronze resource. Turn 2, you will get an additional bronze resource. So now you have 2 bronze. Turn 3, one of those resources gets upgraded to silver. Turn 4, the other resource gets upgraded to silver. So turn 1, 1 bronze. Turn 2, 2 bronze. Turn 3, 1 silver, 1 bronze. Turn 4, 2 silver. And then turn 5 and beyond, one of those silver gets upgraded to a gold resource. So turn 5 and beyond, you have 1 gold and 1 silver resource. Essentially, you're able to play 2 cards per turn. You are allowed to play up to, let's say you're turn 5 and beyond, so you have gold and silver. You're allowed to play 1 gold card and then 1 silver card. You could play 2 bronze cards, but that's still using that resource. So you can use a gold to pay for a bronze. You can use a gold to pay for silver. You cannot use a bronze to pay for a gold card, for instance. Okay, so that's kind of how the resource system works, and I think it's very interesting and something that I really haven't seen done before. So I'm really interested to see how this pays off for the game in the end. But that's the resource system for DC Dual Force, and I'm very, very intrigued. Before we continue, let me know what you think down below in the comments if you like this unique metal-based resource system. All right, now let's talk about deck building and the deck building restrictions of DC Dual Force. So players are going to build 2 40-card decks with 2 leaders at the helm. Now, your leaders can be from any faction. You can build a deck led by Superman and Batman. So you've got might and tactics. So you are able to pick 20 cards from each faction. So 20 cards from red and then 20 cards from tactics. So it's important to note that you'd have to have that split, that half and half split. So 20 of those cards have to be from tactics, 20 of those cards have to be from might, for Superman. Now, you are able to build a mono faction. So you're able to build mono might, for example. So you're allowed to build Superman and Wonder Woman. So that would be 40 cards all from tactics. Okay. Now I'm pretty sure that play sets are 2 copies. If you look at the website, website, appears that there are 2 copies per card. So that would mean a play set of 2. I do have information that tells me that that's the case as well, so it hasn't been confirmed. I do know that it is play sets of 2 copies per card, except ultimates. So if you have ultimate, you're only allowed to have 1 copy of an ultimate card in your deck. All right, keywords. Keywords I'm going to cover in a separate video because there is a lot of keywords. Aura, hidden, flurry, speed, evade. There's a lot. Now, most of them are going to be familiar to you if you've played other card games, okay? But I think that this is going to be devoted to a separate video altogether as far as what keywords are, and there's a lot. So we'll touch on that in a separate video down the line. All right, now let's talk about the turn sequence. So the way turns are going to work, again, is going to be familiar to you if you've played other card games, okay? Now, each player is going to start by drawing 4 cards to their hand, and then you can mulligan any number of them away. Turns start by players drawing 1 card. My understanding is the first player who goes first does not draw a card on turn 1. Additionally, leaders are going to gain a charge. Except first player on turn 1, the leader does not gain a charge. Again, we've talked about this before, but the leaders each have certain abilities that are charge abilities. You will accrue these charges each turn, and then you can spend those charges to activate certain abilities from your leaders, okay? Resources are generated on these turns as well, and then players are able to play as many cards as they have resources for, and then spend leader charges as well as playing recruits actions until they are not able to do so, or just don't want it. So far, this looks to be no interacting with your opponents on their turn, which I think for digital card games is not out of the ordinary. Like, we've seen that in Hearthstone, we've seen that in many other card games before, digital card games, I should say. So there doesn't appear to be any instant speed action, which, depending on who you talk to, like if you talk to Jim, he probably won't like that, but it is what it is, unfortunately. So that's going to be a typical turn sequence. Now, one of the last things I want to touch on is PvE. PvE is going to be a big focus for DC Dual Force, and you know what? Why not? It definitely should be, right? I'm always a big fan of the PvE modes. And one of the things that, and again, this is also another topic that I'll probably cover in a separate video. They are looking to have weekly events, okay, weekly PvE events that are going to be pulled straight from comics. So straight from comics, they're going to essentially bring these comics to life. And then you'll get rewards for each of those free events, okay? And monetization is a whole other thing, which we do have an article from way back in 2021. And I'm going to link Willow's video. Willow did a fantastic video on this exact topic a couple of months ago. So I'm going to link that here. That way you can go check it out. There's a lot of good information, so definitely go check out that video down below. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to PvE. I mean, I really hope we have a robust PvE system and a well-designed PvP system for this game as well. That's kind of all I'm going to go over for this, because there's a ton here. And honestly, I could keep talking and really expand on each of these different points, but we're going to expand on this stuff in other videos. This is kind of everything that we know so far about this game. This is coming before you know it. And so this is coming before I know it, right? This kind of really caught me by surprise, and I am very excited. So I've got other content that I'm going to have to be, well, not have to be, but I'm going to be recording. We're going to be going through each of the factions and all of the cards that have been released so far for that. So we're going to be doing separate videos for each faction and kind of doing a set review from each faction. So I'm looking forward to that, because the first one that I'm doing is going to be tactics, because Batman looks awesome, and I'm here for it. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget, hit that like button if you want to see more DC Dual Force content. Hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when we release new content for this game. So again, hit that like button, hit subscribe. That way you can be around for more DC Dual Force content. Again, check the link down in the description if you want to join the DC Dual Force community currently being run by Willow. I'm in there, and I've kind of been in there a lot today, and yeah, I'm going to be hanging out there as well. And then also there's going to be a link to our Discord as well if you want to join the Hobbies and Happiness community down below. So thanks everybody for being here, and again, I'm looking forward to DC Dual Force. You let me know if you are down below. We'll catch you later, everybody. All right, take care.